Welcome, everyone. Thanks for your patience. I think the recording has begun again, based on that question. So welcome, everyone. If you could take a moment to share your name and any affiliation you want to share, what keeps you busy, in the chat, that would be awesome. And we're going to begin with a land acknowledgement. So we want to acknowledge that the lands we now know as Syracuse and Onondaga County sit on traditional Haudenosaunee territory. We also want to honor our neighbors, the Onondaga Nation, who continue the stewardship of this land throughout the generations. In our efforts towards reparative justice, we at SOFSA are working toward building relations with the Haudenosaunee and Indigenous people as a whole in support of their land reclamation and food sovereignty efforts through advocacy, policy, and raising awareness within the broader community. To run down today's agenda, we have a packed time together, but we will do a brief welcome, including going over some group norms. We'll start out this meeting, as we often do, with network building. So you'll break out into small rooms and we'll give you that direction shortly. Then we'll talk a little bit about SOFSA's updates since the last time we met, both looking back and forging ahead. And then we have two featured presenters, Curtis Waterman from Onondaga Nation and Matt Potteiger from SUNY ESF. And then we'll do questions and answers with the presenters, as well as, you'll break back into those small groups with the folks you've met earlier in the meeting to just discuss what the session brought up for you and what actions you'd like to see us take together coming out of that presentation. And then we'll go through our annual elections of advisory board members and our ratification of our proposed policy platform. And then we'll open the floor for any of your announcements and share some further opportunities coming out of this meeting. So that is our agenda for today. And I think with that, Avalon is going to walk through the group norms.
Hi. Okay, so these are SOFSA's group norms. We've switched them up a little bit, but freedom of movement, that includes the self-care aspect as well. But if you've got to go somewhere else, feel free to leave. We'll miss you, but we'll see you again soon. Ask questions. Feel free to use the raise hand function or use the chat to ask questions of each other and of the presenters. Balance participation. Speak and actively listen, especially in small group conversations. Make sure everybody has an opportunity to share their thoughts, concerns, and questions. Be okay with sitting in silence and people's unique way of processing. Honor other ways of communication beyond the written word and verbal communication. Accept non-closure. We may not get to all questions or even complete our planned agenda at every meeting, but we will always do our best to ensure follow-up. And you can help us out by reaching out to us if there's anything you're waiting on. Intent and impact. Try to understand and anticipate the impact of actions and words. Oftentimes, the impact of something is much more powerful than the intent. Self-care. Your snacks and drinks are welcome on screen if you're comfortable. Stretch when you need to. Keep your camera on when you can, but turn it off when you need privacy or need a break. Accommodations. Instruction, you can turn on closed captioning by clicking the More button and clicking Captions. We also have ASL interpretation off screen. If there's any other accommodations you need in the future, you can always reach out to me. As far as recording, the main portion of this meeting is recorded, but breakout room sessions are not. And shared accountability. We agree to support one another to maintain these guidelines in our work together. One tactic for this might be, oops, ouch, whoa. If you say something that you realize might have a different impact than your intent, you can say or chat, oops. If you felt that impact, but whoever said it might not realize it, you could say, ouch. And if the conversation is moving too fast, you aren't following, or you're looking for clarification, you can say, whoa. You also don't have to use any of those words and can just send me a private chat and convey any of those things in any way you need to. But yeah, that's our group norms. If anybody has an issue with these group norms, you can respond in the chat by saying no, or that there's something that you have an issue with. If not, we will move on.
Okay, thanks, Avalon. So just to ground us in SOFSA's mission for today's meeting, SOFSA's mission is to strengthen our food system so that it works for all people in the city of Syracuse, surrounding Onondaga County and neighboring Onondaga Nation. We bring communities together to foster relationships, develop projects, align resources, and advocate for policies to improve the health of our neighbors and our environment. And these are the sort of the 4 branches of our mission, rooted in equity and justice. I also want to acknowledge just take a moment to acknowledge the many leaders of our network that make SOFSA's work possible. Alongside all of you as members of our network who contribute to our shared success, SOFSA's staff, interns, community liaisons, and advisory board members are essential to guiding and executing everything we do. If you're currently a member of SOFSA's leadership, we'd love to have you give a wave or shoot an emoji in the chat, or on your screen, you can do the 3 dots, anything that works for you. Thanks, Amy. There are lots of others on today's call. So thanks, Tim. Yeah, so anything you want to do but we acknowledge you and are very grateful for all the ways that you support this work alongside the whole of the network. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Alex to go over the breakout instructions.
Alrighty, folks. So for speed networking, we are going to break into small groups, and we are going to choose the small group facilitator based on whose birthday is coming up next. So you'll talk amongst yourselves and figure that out and proceed from there. And this facilitator will be we're responsible for keeping the conversation on track, ensuring that all voices are heard. And you guys can assign a note taker or choose a note taker and make sure that to include those who are part of your group in your notes. And the prompts for today: what grain, rice, corn, semolina, matzo meal, etc. helps define your relationship with food? How do you or your loved ones prepare it? And then the second prompt is, what is one action you took in 2023, personally, professionally, or otherwise, that helped build a better food system in your community? And I think from here, Avalon's going to divvy us up into the groups, and we will go from there. So enjoy your conversations, everyone.
All right.
Let me just have a moment, Avalon, to put these in the chat for everybody.
Yes.
For the folks in the other rooms to join us. Another 30 seconds or so. Matt, I don't think I've Zoomed with you since you've been in a new office, even though I've seen the new building.
Yeah, probably a standard issue bookcase in the back there that you might recognize from Aiden's office.
I do recognize it. All right, welcome back, everyone. So just to dig into SOFSA updates, we are a few minutes behind, so I'm going to speed through these a little bit. So just to share a little bit about our accomplishments in 2023, it was a really huge year for us. I think many of you attended our first annual food justice gathering, which had over 150 attendees. our listserv and newsletter subscribers and all of our membership metrics grew substantially over the course of 2023. We also had a higher than ever response rate to our annual candidate questionnaire, which then generated a voter guide around food policy issues that our membership cares about, including various issues that have come up through the community listening sessions that you'll hear about more in a moment. And then, of course, we did 8 community listening sessions total across Syracuse and Onondaga County. We held 3 open meetings, 5 featured speakers, 9 coffee hours, 4 affinity groups, and a partridge in a pear tree, as Amy Grover said in our advisory board meeting. Our annual report is coming out towards the end of this month or early February, and we'll be really excited to share that with everyone as well, which will encompass all of these stories as well as some others. So stay tuned for that. And upcoming opportunities just to share with everyone, at the Food Justice Gathering, Kiana and Amelia and Marguerite and I did a presentation over lunch about our upcoming Food Justice Fund. And many of you have also contributed to the Food Justice Fund through our annual Plant a Seed for SOFSA campaign. But I just wanted to share that many of our food justice leaders are actually on today's call. I'm seeing Rhonda and Twiggy and Teralicia. I think that's everybody who's here today. But we have a great group supporting the decision-making around how the funding priorities and designing the application itself. And so those applications will open on February 15th. And we'll be announcing those in lots of different ways. There's also going to be application support offered by Marguerite, both in person and virtually if needed, for anybody who needs assistance in completing those grant applications. And with that, I will turn it over to Avalon to talk about the other request for proposals.
Thanks, Maura. So yeah, on here on the right is this lovely photo from the listening session we did last year with Brady Market. And last year was the first time we released a request for proposals for SOFSA's community listening sessions. These are one of the key ways that SOFSA informs how we carry out our larger mission. Last January, we released our initial request for proposals to participate in one of these partnered listening sessions. And today we are releasing our second annual RFP. I put the link in the chat. More information can be found there. And of course, anyone is welcome to reach out to me. On the same line, I think it's a relatively light lift for application, but if you need application assistance, again, feel free to reach out to me or anyone at SOFSA with any other questions.
Any questions on those looking back, looking forward pieces before we move on?
Oh, Twiggy, good question about who is eligible to apply. So this year, it's anybody whose organization here, I'll just copy and paste the message in the application. Yeah, if you got one. So we're very specific about the language this year, that if you've received funding in the past, we're going to prioritize hearing from new communities. But we're also leaving open a lot of space for kind of organic partnership and seeing where that goes. The listening sessions this past year really informed SOFSA's policy platform, which we'll be talking about shortly. And so, and a lot of those kind of came together, not as a result of the RFP. Thanks for asking, Twiggy.
Great. Great. With that, we'll move on to our featured presenters.
All right. Yeah, I'm gonna read some short bios and then let them get into it. So today we're gonna hear from 2 longtime SOFSA members, Curtis Waterman and Matt Potteiger. So in addition to being a SOFSA advisory board member, Curtis Waterman is a member of the Onondaga Nation and works on the Onondaga Nation farm, supporting the hunting and fishing crew. Before working with SOFSA, Curtis sat on the board that oversaw Honeywell Corporation's excuse me, Honeywell Corporation's cleanup of Onondaga Lake. Sorry, Maura, do you want to read the other one? I'm gonna drop it in the chat.
I don't actually have it. If you chat it to me, that would be great. So, we take care of our needs. Matt Potteiger was part of the initial visioning team for SOFSA and is a professor of landscape architecture at SUNY ESF, where he is teaching research, where his teaching, research, and community engagement focuses on how the food we eat shapes the ecology, public spaces, and social life of our landscapes. He has led community-based projects aimed at creating a more sustainable and socially just regional food system in Syracuse and Central New York, including collaboration with the New American community in creating Salt City Harvest Farm and co-authoring Food Plan CNY with Evan Weissman. And with that, I think we'll stop the share and spotlight the two of you and let you take it away.
Okay, Matt, do you want me to go to first?
Yeah, Curtis, take it away.
Okay, yeah, well, when we first talked about this, I thought we had 15 minutes to split. And then I saw in the agenda we had 10 minutes to split. So
we can be flexible. We'll give you what you need. And we'll adjust on the other end.
Because I did write something that I'm going to read. And I call it a requiem to a memory. It's picture yourself doggy paddling out into the deep part of your favorite swimming hole behind your house. You don't know how to swim yet, so you're unsure of how deep the water really is. You stick your head in the water to see if you can see bottom, making sure you keep paddling so you don't sink. What you see is the sun's rays shining past your shadowy silhouette, disappearing into the black, inky depths. You see the rays disappear and reappear as you move your arms to stay afloat. The black depths scare you because who knows what lies hidden, lurking, waiting for some young morsel like you to frantically doggy paddle back to the shallows. Back in the safe shallows, you put your head in the water again. This time you see the bottom, with the sun's rays reflecting the ripples of the water like they are on the bottom. You look to the shore and you see the roots and rocks as clear as day, 20 feet away. You look to the other shore and you see the same thing, only with the deep unknown looking back at you. The next day, you return to this community hole, not to swim, but to fish. You know there are trout, horndays, suckers, and whitefish to be caught. Your grandma would be so happy if you caught something for supper. And how could any of these fish resist the fresh, wiggly nightcrawler you caught just last night? Well, there you sit, waiting and waiting. No bites. You reel in the worm a little bit, about 6 inches. Again, waiting and waiting. The dragonflies mating. They're interesting, stuck together, flying around. The drake mallard is showing off to his hens. And the muskrats are as busy as the beavers, tending to their huts. Then you glance at the water, and right next to your fishing pole is a fish. It's about 15 inches long. It has what looks like a brain pattern on its back. I know by the shape it's a trout, but what kind? I slowly reel in my bait and lift up the line and worm. He's still there. Grandma's going to be happy. I slowly, gently put the worm in front of its mouth. And he swims away. Dang! The state fair comes to Syracuse every year, and I would always go to the DEC building to look at all the huge fish of all kinds. I looked at the posters and live fish to see which one I had seen the brain pattern. After searching for a while, there it was. It was a brook trout, but none of them were as big as the one I saw. To this day, I know that a 15-inch brook trout is huge. It's trophy size. And through the years, I never caught a brook trout that was ever that big again, maybe 12 inches. I caught brown trout up to 22 inches, many of them. Rainbow trout up to 16 inches. The biggest rainbow trout I know of that was caught in Onondaga Creek was a 36-inch rainbow caught by my best friend's mother. I tell you these memories because they are dear to me, vivid as the day they happened. I still get joy and a warm heart as I tell them. But for today's task, I must say that clear water, trout, and all the imagery are gone. The swimming hole is still there, and maybe the dragonflies too. But there is no laughter. There are no children swimming. There's no life in the creek. Sterile bottoms because the light can't penetrate the sediment. Life cannot grow. The well-worn paths along the creek are barely visible. There is life, but only within the top 3 inches of the water. Only creatures that can survive low oxygen live there. The water looks like chocolate milk year-round. It's a lost resource, starting on its 3rd generation. Big business on the southwestern shore of Onondaga Lake followed the salt near the lake all the way down to the Tully Valley. There they found vast caverns, 1,200 feet deep. The way to get the salt out was to drill down and fill the caverns with water and create a brine solution. Then pump the brine 15 miles to Solvay process, where they would extract the salt and make sodium carbonate or soda ash. Then they would make many products, which these products would produce a waste called calcium chloride, which causes cancer. And this started in 1883 with Solvay process, which became Allied Chemical, and another sister company, Allied Signal, which went out of business. And then Allied Chemical absorbed Honeywell and kept the name because it just sounded better. In 1994, Onondaga Lake was made a Superfund site with Honeywell liable for the cleanup. A price tag of $2 billion was put on the total cleanup, but Honeywell only offered $450 million, which is a quarter of what needed to be done. Onondaga Nation was one of the 5 trustees and was told to accept the $450 million or nothing would get done. So now the cleanup is done and Onondaga Lake is better, but it still has 3/4 of the pollution still there. I see many articles and people praising Honeywell for the great job they have done and how Onondaga Lake is a success story. Well, I see it as environmental injustice done by the hand of big business. They still, today, the mud boils discharge tons of sediment into Onondaga Creek. There are many sides to every big business's story and large amounts of money to be made. But the most ignored and most important question is, at what cost to the environment? I still have my memories. Thank you.
Thank you, Curtis. It's an amazing story, and I guess what I'll do is, well, I'm sure we'll discuss this. What I'll try to do is tell some other stories at a different scale, and also cautionary but maybe there's some things that we can look at that provide some guides and examples on how to do things differently. So we were asked to talk about what we might learn from the past and other places in relation to the development around Micron and its also relationship to community, landscape, and especially food systems. So, Micron locating here in central New York with public assistance from CHIPS Act and New York State taxpayers is really a strategy of place-based manufacturing. Actually, I'm going to share my the screen here with some images. Everybody can see that? Is that all working there?
Looks good.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, so it's a strategy of place-based manufacturing here that less than 2% of these chips are made in the United States because it costs more to make microchips.
Could you do a slideshow so that we could see the holes?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't make that.
There you
go. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, let me adjust my screen here too. So sorry for adjusting things here. So I need to reduce my screen, but I don't think I can. I don't see well.
It looks good to us, Matt.
Okay. And now I'm trying to go backwards. It won't go backwards. But anyway, I'll just wing it here. So yeah, place-based manufacturing. That's the strategy for locating Micron here in central New York for reasons of, we have water, we have knowledge here for Syracuse and ESF and other universities here. Hopefully they recognize the knowledge that's embedded in indigenous communities and people like Curtis and generations of people who know this place and have all particular kinds of knowledge. The idea with place-based manufacturing, we could start to think about it as aligned with the goals of SOFSA to make a place-based food system, okay? Because, producing food here in central New York is more expensive. It has some challenges compared to other places in the United States, but through policy, there's benefits for, locating food production here and food systems here, just like there's argument for locating Micron here. And Micron definitely benefits from our assets, our landscape, our place, water, land, knowledge. But the challenge is that what's its impact on those assets? So a little bit of cautionary tale here. And to go to, so you could say, the center of tech industries, a place called Silicon Valley in the south end of San Francisco Bay, San Jose, and Silicon Valley developed because of its connection with Stanford University, knowledge, right? But it also was, there was some other industries there, and early forms of electronic industries. Lockheed Martin was based there. So there's a history of development of what was the Santa Clara Valley, but before it was known as Silicon Valley. Okay, yeah, I can't try it. It was known as the Valley of Heart's Delight, or the Garden of the World. It was one of the most productive agricultural areas in the United States, especially around fruit and vegetables, in particular apricots. It had the particular kind of sandy soil and microclimate that have about 35 days per year of just under 45 degrees temperature. Other parts of California are too hot for apricots. So they produce really one of the world's largest producers of apricots and fruits up from about the 1850s till the 1970s. And so the 1970s, and here's the product, that's what the valley looked like. And That's what the valley looks like today. Down in the bottom corner is just a portion of the headquarters of Apple headquarters. So what happened in the 1960s, 1970s, electronics industries and computer industries, HP and other Adobe software development, but it's really electronics that came here first. And what they didn't realize is that it really consumed a lot of water resources. There were chemicals in the production of the electronics that went into the water system. Unknown at the time, they didn't know the carcinogens that were produced that were caused by these outputs. There were also with the development that it produced and generated impacted water supply. Tapping into the aquifers meant subsidence of land, in some cases up to 14 feet. That increased erosion and impacted communities. One of those communities was at the north end of the Santa Clara Valley, called Avisa, which experienced a Latinx community, experienced increased flooding and inundation as a result of the development. So there were a lot of impacts and the valley is pretty much completely urbanized now. So what does this mean as a cautionary tale for central New York, upstate New York? We have a lot of assets here, and what's its relationship to the food system? Maybe we don't have the great climate, the all year round beautiful climate of the Santa Clara Valley, but we actually have a valuable diversity of microclimates that produces a great diversity of agricultural crops that have histories and are tied to particular communities. One of those example, just to pick one thing out, the muck soils in this region. They're about 14,000 years old after the retreat of the last glacial episode. They're 80 to 90% organic matter. They were primarily farmed by people of Italian heritage. And so it's one of the great assets of this area. So we have a really valuable agricultural landscape. And there you see Micron locating at the edge of the city. You can see in what is a really critically important agricultural area for the region, because also it's close to the markets of Syracuse and also processing, et cetera. So I think we need to pay attention to that, okay? The location of Micron and this urban edge agriculture is the most vulnerable to develop. It's already been encroached on by development. So Syracuse-Onondaga Planning Agency has a new agricultural conservation plan which addresses these issues and has some policies and practices in place. And I think we can also look to go back to the California and Silicon Valley for some precedent. Just what's part of this valley towards the southern end, and really just 20 miles from San Jose, is a valley called the Coyote. Sorry, I spelled that wrong. The Coyote Valley. It was slated for development, but the economic crash of 2008 stalled development, and they gave them time to do some planning, some food system planning in relationship to landscape planning, where they're really aggressively looking at the idea that agricultural preservation and conservation can actually also benefit places like San Jose, because it promotes job creation and housing in areas that are already developed, okay? And it also reduces less stress on environmental systems. So there, we can look just to the south of Silicon Valley, to Coyote Valley, for some guidelines, for some practices and some policies as we face some of the potential, but also some of the potential development, but also potential impacts of the micron development. And again, sustainable cities need to be sustained, and food is a key part of that. And ironically, most urban development destroys the very sustenance of the landscape around it and the systems around it. So we have a good opportunity here. We're situated, medium-sized city surrounded by really diverse and ecosystems and agriculture. So there's a really important opportunity here that we can maybe create a different model than other places. So thanks. And let me stop the share.
Thank you, Curtis and Matt. That was so beautiful and helpful information. I'm going to unspotlight you now, I think, and open the floor to a few minutes of questions before we go into breakout rooms. Any questions for the presenters?
Kiana?
Sorry, thanks.
Yeah, I want to know, like, Curtis, just from your perspective, what has the outreach been like with Micron to the Onondaga Nation around environmental conservation? Are they positioning the nation to be a leader in this effort as they're coming in with that transition? Have there been any conversations around that?
No. I did go to a meeting that they had at the elementary school, and I brought up the environmental aspect of the millions of gallons of water that they were going to use, and they were not cleaning up 100% of it. They only have like a 70-30 cleanup. And I was told that that was not the time or place to ask that question. They said you can go to this other meeting somewhere else where they will answer that question. But they were not there to talk about environmental issues. They were there to talk about developing elementary kids to work in the Micron plant. So they didn't want to hear it.
Dr. Ryan?
Hi, yes. It's really, I'm kind of blown away by the Silicon Valley kind of parallel, because where I'm at, I keep referencing this point. I keep saying it, but I've been thinking more about the social impacts of housing and, what's going to happen moving forward. So I'm just wondering from both speakers, what's something that they're going to be watching closely at the personal level to see if things that they individually care about are kind of going in a direction that they're, wanting to push back on or get more involved with. I'm just kind of interested to where there's, what's their number one, number two things that they're really going to be focusing on as development continues.
Go ahead, Curtis. Yeah.
Well, my concern is obviously the environment, and there's even the amount of water that they're going to use it varies from 20 million a day to 40 million gallons a day, which is a lot. However, if they had 100% cleanup, it wouldn't be such an issue. But they don't have 100% cleanup. They're talking about by 2050 is when they might reach 100% cleanup, because they say they're always trying to use different chemicals that are better for the environment. You know, they have their own ways of cleaning out the nano particles in the water. But I see it as they're not there yet. They're still at this 30%. So 30% of, let's just say 20 million gallons a day, they have a 20-year plan times 20 is going to go into the watershed, which is Lake Ontario, which is the drinking source for Syracuse. So that kind of concerns me. So, I mean, yes, it's going to bring jobs. It's going to bring, you know, all the good things that industry brings. But like I said in my little talk, at what cost? So, and it's always downstream. They never build a power plant above a city on a river. They always build a power plant below the city. And who does that hurt? It eventually hurts indigenous people and farmers, and people who really can't, who don't have the income to fight for things that they really need. So they become victims of progress, if you want to call it.
Yeah,
I just wanted to chime in really quick because one of the things that happened, we just had this discussion among our youth the other day, and in teaching youth that work at Urban Delights about our watershed, about water environmental protection, about stormwater capturing, about an aquarium coming up, about how much water Budweiser uses, how much water Pepsi uses, and other things. I'm an urban farm that has a problem. I'm in a food desert having a problem delivering water to my crops, right? So looking at it in those ways for Matt and you, I'm asking Matt, I'm doing a charrette with him later on, that has to be focused now I'm seeing on water, right? Because I have to have a good delivery way. I have to know what amount of consumption that I use, right? But we have other projects in the city of Syracuse throughout the county that we're not tapping into like this, that use the same sort of resources that put us where I live at in a food desert in much worse conditions than what we are. Right. So like, even if I wanted to get a rain barrel to capture water, I have to go out to WEP. I have to find a transportation, find a truck, have a way to get that rain barrel back, find the best way to capture the water, so forth and so on. But we are in no way looking at the water usage around this county in a way that is very impactful to all neighborhoods, especially very impoverished neighborhood, because we get more than the market share. Right, we get the brunt end of all the water used, the so forth and so on, sort of like the power grid reference that was used, right? The smaller our communities get the biggest impact when other communities open up. Our theorems go up, everything goes up for us when they can keep it low for the new people that move into suburbs, urban sprawl, so forth and so on. So I'm wondering from this conversation, should we be taking a look at the bigger picture of water usage? All these companies that are using water, dumping in, using our tributaries to have us to have to clean up and do something in a bigger way that protects our water sources.
Yeah, I would agree, Twiggy. And even water and its value, in the region, just for agriculture. That's why this region is going to become more and more important as an agricultural region because of our access to and the nature and quality of our water. So, so the water consumption of Micron needs to be framed within, that broader perspective. And so,
yeah, I'd also like to say that the reason Honeywell or Allied Chemical dumped the chemicals into Onondaga Lake was because it wasn't against the law at the time. And the problem that happens is if you legislate all these environmental laws on these companies, that's why they leave the United States. That's why they go to these different countries that don't have the laws, and they pollute in other countries. So you got to try to have a balance of legislation so these big companies just don't run rampant and pollute everything. So sustainability is one thing. Being able to put the money back into cleanup and then give the profits to the stakeholders.
Go ahead, Matt. Were you going to say something? So I had a question regarding the plans that they have put forward for Micron. There are a lot of people that have said they are, sufficient in explaining how they're going to offset the environmental impacts. You know, I have large concerns with the amount of water that they will be siphoning on a daily basis, given that anybody who's lived in the area for any amount of time knows, especially in the warmer months, just how much that particular water system can fluctuate. On a given week, it can go down up to a foot, and that's just what we're seeing. And that's without another huge plant pulling millions upon millions of gallons from it every single day. Yes, they're putting water back, but and Matt, you brought up the marshes, which are primarily slightly north of here, more where I grew up, and a lot of them are not too far off of that same, tributaries of that same waterway. And I feel like they're going to be directly impacted as well. And I just kind of wanted to hear, Matt and Curtis, your feelings on the actual environmental impact assessment that Micron has released. I believe it was back in October or November when they had their town hall regarding that. And if you see anybody actually coming forward and trying to make them do better before, kind of fatalistically, it's too late.
I've read where they say they're within the government guidelines for environmental pollution, and which is fine, which is good for a legal argument, but then the guidelines get lowered because they don't want the business to leave. So I believe that's a problem.
I just want to say this real quickly, is that the Supreme Court is taking up the matter from Cole to stop all the EPA and the governmental protections for us in this country dealing with the water issues and the environmental issues in this country. So how can we as people in the United States can stop this type of activity that the other side wants to happen because they don't care about us, I feel, as human beings, to needing clean water, needing clean environmental involvement in our lives through the Onondaga Nation, all the way down to us here in Syracuse, New York. I don't understand the rationality with this mega ways of thinking to destroy what was built up to protect our environmental situation from over 20 years, like they did with the abortion and affirmative action right. Things are being cut out. We got to get together to stop this nonsense.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. that level is Supreme Court, Mabel. Right now, they're considering EPA and also, administrative oversight and guidelines and policy. Yeah, I think, if my main concern is, what recourse at the local level, at the county level, in terms of monitoring, in terms of knowledge and information, and in terms of, what are the openings for any advocacy that all the various forms of knowledge and information can be brought into the mix, into decisions and into any policy. So, and what it sounds like, it hasn't fully happened yet.
No, it hasn't happened as of yet. But what you just said, to piggyback on that, how can we, as a people of Onondaga County, can get together and take action, the pre-action right now, to make this a national thing throughout our country, that this is an important issue that we should start working on with the other issues like the right to vote, etc. We need to do something now, and that's what I'm working on doing, and that's why all these years be asking people, let's sit down and talk. And a lot of times, some people that we know won't do that. I'm just me with these concerns. And
thank you. Can I just piggyback on Mabel, because I want to acknowledge that we're a little bit behind time, which is a-okay. That was one of our group norms from the very beginning. But so both to Mabel's question, and Edgar also shared in the chat, is there anything we can do to remedy this situation? So we're really going to have time to have like sufficient breakout groups. So I'm wondering if the two presenters could share just some ideas of what you think as a coalition our network is positioned to do to mitigate some of the potential harms and maximize the benefits that current and future industry can bring to our region.
I guess that's exactly what I was going to say, that here's an organization. I know there were 60 people here around the concept of food system, which is integrative, which is impactful for so many different things in terms of economics, environment, social justice. There's a really strong framework and an organization here, and key people from many different parts, many different sectors, and many different political backgrounds. So I don't, maybe that's so general, but I think this is one of the best ways to start to engage and articulate and advocate. And I think we could use the same logic as what I try to say is that, place-based manufacturing, place-based food system. There can be a pairing of those things, mutual benefits across all these different sectors, from environment to economy to social justice. So, and it sounds like the key issue, especially, is the mutual interest around water. So if we keep identifying the values of the food system and how that can be built through this in some kind of alignment with what's happening with Micron and development.
Thanks, Matt. Curtis, do you have anything to add? Oh, you're muted. Thanks.
I would say that first on the Honeywell situation, that's been going on for, like I was saying, a long time, since the water has been chocolate milk since the 70s. So you're talking 30, going on 50 some years now. And the storm has kind of calmed as far as what's going to happen. And yet the water is still dirty as can be. So from one point of view, it's almost like we need to have an uprising by protests to make Honeywell get back on the stick of thinking about doing something to clean up the problem that they created. Getting students involved, which is the same thing that happened way back in the 70s when Route 81 got closed. There were students all from all the different colleges up there with Onondaga Nation helping us support our cause. Now, as far as Honeywell, as far as Micron, my thinking is they are, as far as cleanup, like I was mentioning, they have a 70% clean water reuse, and 30% of it is dirty. They plan on making that better in the year 2050. But maybe they need a little push to say, hey, let's not look at 2050. Let's look at 2030. Push them to get 100% clean water, get them to be sustainable to where they're not hurting the environment. So that's kind of my thought on that, is push them to become less polluting.
Thanks, Curtis and Matt. Dr. Ryan, I'm going to move us along just because we have a lot left on the agenda, but if you want to throw your question in the chat just so we have it, that would be great. Thank you both for these remarks and sharing your perspectives with us. I do think that we as a network are really well positioned to bring our voices together and raise both concerns and opportunities for collaboration. Micron was present at the Food Justice Gathering, and some of you on today's call also raised some beautiful questions in that space. We also had a small community listening session with them as well, and I think the conversation will need to and is going to continue. I'm not sure what the link that Kiana shared, but I did want to share one link with everyone that Lauren reminded me of, and this is not to sugarcoat anything but I think alongside the environmental challenges and the challenges of new industry and all that comes with that, I think there are also investments there will be investments, deep investments in our community monetarily. And so thinking a little bit about that, I just wanted to share that link that I just plopped in the chat that gives everybody the opportunity to share with their community engagement committee, which will ultimately inform the ways in which they spend. I think it's $500 million in our region. And I think that there is some good that can come out of those funds alongside our organizing. And so to use both a carrot, let's partner, let's think about what's possible approach, as well as an accountability approach, I think will be a really vital way for our network to organize in an ongoing way. So thank you both. I think this is part of a conversation that will continue, and if you have ideas about how you'd like this conversation to continue or venues where you'd like it to happen, our staff would love to hear that from anyone and everyone. So unfortunately, I am going to move on in the agenda, however, and my slides are a little funky from here out, so I'm going to skip ahead. Okay, let's see. I'm going to share our screen. Okay. Can folks see that all right? Yeah, okay. Thank you. All right, so SOFSA's advisory board, every January we do elections of new advisory board members. And just to talk a little bit about the role of SOFSA's advisory board members, they help to lead SOFSA in advancing our mission and toward meeting our short and long-term goals. Members have the responsibility to keep SOFSA's operations and conduct in accordance with its mission. And new advisory board members begin their term following elections each January, and they have a term of 3 years. terms of approximately a third of each advisory board expire. So we rotate off and rotate on new advisory board members, about a third at a time. And those terming out have the option to seek re-election. But all of this is included in our bylaws, which were just revised and ratified by the membership at the Food Justice Gathering. But you can see that via that link if you want to see the whole of the bylaws. So as a starting point, I did just want to thank our 5 outgoing advisory board members who served in 2023 and before. So Brandy Colebrook, Christina Hudson-Kohler, Esteli Jimenez Soto, Julia Carboni, and Jeremy DiCerio are all stepping down as of the end of this month. And we're just very grateful for their service and all the ways that they contributed to SOFSA's growth over these last few years. And Dave's picture is not showing up. If you don't know who Dave Knapp is, let me see if I skip the slideshow. If I escape the slide, there it is. I don't know why it's not working. But Avalon, you were going to share bios if you're in a place where you can do that. I don't know.
Sorry, I didn't realize I was sharing bios. I thought that we were inviting folks to share a little bit about themselves. But I can read some bios. I can pull some up really quickly. So Dave Knapp is up for re-election. He's an Onondaga County legislator and the co-chair of the Onondaga Agricultural Council. He's a strong advocate for farmers, and his unwavering and longstanding support of SOFSA has led to deepened partnerships with farmers and food producers throughout Onondaga County. Adol Mayen is the Immigrant and Refugees Affairs Coordinator employed with the Syracuse City Neighborhood and Business Development. Adol brings extensive experience in education, project management, and research, as well as her lived experience as a new American. Adol is passionate about connecting communities. Maria Bianchetti is the Recycling Operations Manager for OCRA, the Onondaga County Resource Recovery Agency. She's an employee of Fat Cat Bakery and a member of the Emmy Farms family. Maria brings all of these skills, and especially her extensive knowledge of the food waste system and composting. Leah DeRosa is currently the co-owner of Plum and Mule Community Market. She comes from a public health and healthcare management background, as well as an ancestral history of farming as food sovereignty. Leah is well acquainted with the food as medicine lens and is passionate about access to healthy and delicious food for all.
Thanks, Avalon. And if any of the candidates want to share anything in addition to that bio, we invite you to unmute and share anything that we missed or anything else you want to say before voting officially begins. Okay, I know that not everybody's interested in public speaking, and that is okay. That is not a requirement of our advisory board, it turns out. So let's see, let me go back to the slides here. There he is. It was animated for some reason. Who knew? Okay. And just wanting to just go over this chart super quickly. So our bylaws do stipulate that we have a broad range of folks from different areas of the food system. And so we go through this chart every time we bring on and older advisory board members step off and new ones are being recruited to make sure that we have a good distribution. So in green at the top is the current advisory board members who are continuing into the next term. Dave is there as someone seeking re-election. Our 3 community liaisons who don't officially sit on the advisory board are also listed in the blue, and then our 3 new candidates for election are listed in gray at the bottom. And so you can see there are certain areas that we are still missing. And so if you have ideas of folks who might be good fits for next January's election, start thinking now about who else we'd like to add to this wonderful group for the next term. Okay, and I'm gonna let's see, did I have this in the notes? Hang on. So guess not. Sorry. We'll share the ballot with you at the end once we get through the policy platform as well. So very quickly in 2023, we had a number of policy wins. So Rhonda, who's on the call, and I testified before the Syracuse City Council and around the rezone Syracuse, talking about food access issues and urban agriculture. We also lobbied at the State House alongside American Heart Association for healthy school meals. And our team will be advocating again for universal school meals in Albany towards the end of this month. We also supported the regional markets infrastructure and helped them to launch that project forward. We signed on to a letter urging Governor Hochul to prioritize farm to institution in the coming budget that just came out. And then we collaborated with the Farm Bureau across New York State to also include in their policy platform for both 2023 and 2024, the Healthy School Meals for All budget line. And then finally, we signed on to a successful letter championing summer EBT for kids when they're out of school. You can hear more about all of these and others at our next Policy and Planning Committee meeting, which we will talk about next. And so that Policy and Planning Committee, over the course of the latter half of 2023, looked at our policy priorities from 2023 and began to envision what they might look like in 2024. There was, as Avalon said, a lot of input from the community listening sessions that we had over the course of the year that helped to really shape and inform what policies we're proposing to move forward. And so the questions that we asked ourselves as we were sort of skimming the possible list of all the things down to the priority list were what are some of the key food system issues we're hearing about right now? Is it possible for SOFSA members to make a difference around these issues? And who is already addressing these issues, and how can SOFSA help? Then we did a narrowing process, talking about how each policy opportunity aligned with SOFSA's own goals related to demonstrated need, the clarity of potential actions, the existing momentum, and making sure that we're galvanizing unity across our coalition. And finally, we verified with the Equity, Inclusion, and Accountability Committee, asking if these policies align with SOFSA's aim to be rooted in equity and justice. And so that was the process of developing these policy priorities proposed for 2024. So for the coming year, we again have 7 priorities. SOFSA as a co-leader, these are more locally minded pieces, and SOFSA as a supporter are more statewide, where we're part of broader coalitions with big picture leaders like Hunger Solutions New York, American Farmland Trust, other sort of larger statewide organizations with their own advocacy arms that we are signing on to and supporting their efforts. So in terms of SOFSA being a co-leader, the one is root causes of hunger. So educating policymakers about the root causes of hunger and the interconnectedness of food with broader issues, including housing, including the cost of healthcare and medicine and other things. Area number 2, food system infrastructure investments. So the goal there would be investing in food system infrastructure as a driver of regional economic development. This would include the regional market, which was itself a priority in last year's platform, but also include things like bringing a grocery store back to Valley Plaza and other food system infrastructures that are vital to our region. Expansion of infrastructure to support distribution and aggregation and farm to school and. But thinking about that more holistically as something that we would advocate for as a grouping. Transportation and food access, this is really directly related to some of the community listening sessions we did, but ensuring food access is a key driver of transportation planning and building partnerships so that we can engage in that conversation. And then finally, this is coming out of our Food as Medicine group, for the New York State 1115 waiver implementation. So making sure that we are at the table and lifting up community concerns in the implementation of that waiver and food as medicine initiatives. So those are the 4 local issues. And then the statewide issues. And all 3 of these were on last year's platform, just to share that. Expansion of farm to institutions, so expanding local procurement in schools, universities, hospitals, and the emergency food system, as well as other institutions. Universal school meals, ensuring that all New York students have access to free school meals. Nutrition assistance programs, promoting food security by enhancing SNAP and other nutrition assistance programs, including things like Double Up Food Bucks and other incentives that stretch SNAP dollars. So these are the 7 proposed priorities for SOFSA's platform for 2024. That's the year we're in. Oh my gosh. You can read more about all of that. It's not a formatted document, but it's really the working document that the Policy and Planning Committee was working from in developing these priorities. And so once they are finalized, we'll do sort of a public facing version that has a little bit more depth than this slide itself. But if you are interested in digging deeper into the why and how and who of those issues, feel free to go to that link, which hopefully somebody can put in the chat for us as well. So the next steps, apparently that's animated as well, sorry. You can read more about the policy platform, and then this is the link to cast your ballot. So the ballot is now open officially. You will be able to vote on each individual policy. So if there's a policy that you disagree with or have concerns about, you can support or oppose policies individually as ones that you'd like for us to prioritize. If anything, or any advisory board candidate gets under 2/3 support from those folks who are voting, we will, that will not move forward at this time, and we will revisit and reopen discussions about that. Any of you are welcome to vote, including current advisory board candidates. Anyone who's a resident of anywhere in Syracuse-Onondaga County or Onondaga Nation is open to voting one time. And then voting will be open until January 25th, and we will all welcome our new advisory board members at that time. Questions before we speed through the rest? There's so much more. Okay, we're going to go fast. Alex, do you want to take it away?
Yes. For member announcements, does anyone have anything going on with their organizations that they would like to unmute and share with the group? If you don't want to unmute, you can always drop it in the chat.
Actually, yeah. So I know that in the chat it was mentioned that AGREE is focused on the New York Heat Now, like Renewable Heat Now bill. So if anybody is interested in that, or just like getting to know the people of AGREE to kind of talk to them more about like what water bills we can kind of figure out, they are meeting tonight at 7 p.m. and I can give people like the Zoom link if anyone's interested in that.
Thank you, Kate.
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Amelia.
I just wanted to put out there that this Saturday at Soul Branch Library, Syracuse DSA will be having 2 protest safety trainings. One starting at 11 a.m. is a Narcan training that will be going from 11 a.m. to noon. And then another starting at 1:30 p.m. going to 4:30 p.m. is a Stop the Bleed training. You can either, I will drop my email in the chat, you can email me and I'll send you the Action Network RSVP, or you can find the link on the Soul Branch Library website under the Adult Services.
Thank you.
And I did put a flyer in the chat for all that would like to, as we work to continue looking
for the best fit. Lot of work in the making for a grocery store at the Valley Plaza. In the meantime, I have a flyer. If you would open the link and print it out, and please pass it out, post it up in the window where you work if that's allowed, so that folks can come and be a part of the Food Access Healthy Neighborhood Winter Season Farmers Market every second and fourth Saturday of the month in the Valley Plaza from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Thank you.
Rhonda.
Thanks,
I'm drawing some quick attention to the chat. Jacob at Salt City Harvest Farm says they are looking to hire some folks for the farm and folks for the advisory board. And one other one. And Jesse from Brady Farm says that there's also 5 leadership positions open there. And Twiggy says Jubilee Homes is hiring an agricultural manager. Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Is there anything else before we move on?
Alex, there was just one more from Lauren about 11:15 waiver public informational webinar next Wednesday. That's also in the chat. The link is there.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. I overlooked that one. Alrighty. For the next spot, we have a listserv. So as these things come up throughout the weeks and throughout the months, feel free to always drop these in the listserv, and it goes out to everyone in the SOFSA community. I'm going to hand it back to Maura for upcoming SOFSA opportunities.
All right. So our next open meeting is going to be Thursday, April 25th. It's actually the 4th Thursday, and we're going to move back to the morning time for that one. So it'll be 10:30 to noon. The focus will be our strategic planning consultant, who was here for the earlier part of the call but needed to step off for another meeting, will be presenting on sort of the interim findings and her suggestions for our strategic action plan for the next 5 years. And we'll be soliciting feedback from everyone who's there. It will be a really helpful time for SOFSA to have your input. And so we'd love to have you attend. And then Avalon, are you going through the upcoming gatherings? We're just playing potato right now.
Yeah. So you can find all of these on SOFSA's community calendar, which is on our website under Get Involved. Folks are also welcome to share their own events with me, and I'll share them on that calendar. Upcoming next is our coffee hour next week at Salt City Coffee on West Onondaga. We also have the Farm to School Working Group meeting on the 23rd on Zoom. Food is Medicine Working Group meeting is going to be in person at SOFSA's offices on the 25th. And then in February, we'll have our Policy and Planning Committee meeting, joining together for the first time after approving the policy platform. Our affinity group spaces, Chop Chat Chill, and that's our BIPOC affinity group, and our LGBTQ plus affinity group will be gathering in person on the 22nd. Look for a Witness to Injustice registration to be posted soon. That is a history of Indigenous peoples in an experiential learning. That is going to be March 19th. We'll be kicking off Racial Justice Habit Building April 1st. And way ahead in April, on April 18th is the Food Justice Gather and Grant celebration. So, keep your eyes peeled. Listserv, newsletter, social media. We'll share about all these things and hope to see you all there.
Thanks. And Alex is going to talk really quickly about Offren.
Yes. So Offren is the Onondaga Food Rescue Network. It's one of our pilot projects that we are working in conjunction with Syracuse University on. And we have a in-person meeting this would be 2 weeks from now on the 30th, on January 30th, in person at SOFSA's office. You can check out our public calendar. The details are on there. And so essentially it's a group that we're looking to reduce food waste and food insecurity through a variety of means. If this is something that interests you, please check us out on the website. We have a page on our website, which is /Offren, and there's all sorts of ways to get involved there. Joining the listserv, shooting me an email, shooting me a call, text, however it goes. But we'll keep that brief. Thank you.
All right, and so just for final action items, to sign up for any of these committees so that you get ongoing information, it's our website /get involved. We also do Friday features, which hopefully if you're following us on social media, you see us celebrating all the amazing members of SOFSA, and they're both who they are and what they do on a daily basis, but also inspirations and celebrations of the things that are happening in your world. So if you have a big win or an accomplishment or anything like that, we'd love to celebrate that alongside you. And then finally, again, please cast your ballot between now and next Thursday evening. We would just love to have as many folks participate as possible in this year's election. And with that, I will stay on the line for a few more minutes if there are questions. But we are ending at 5:02. Not terrible for being behind earlier in the meeting. Thank you all for your understanding that we didn't get to breakout rooms, but hopefully we can continue the conversation in other ways and other spaces moving forward.